Today, we're going to dig into a story about population that, honestly, starts with a real puzzle. It's a story of booms, busts, and the incredible forces that shape human history. So, let's get right into it. Let's start right here. Back in 1841, way before the modern world as we know it, the island of Ireland was home to over 8 million people. I mean, think about that. That was a huge number for the time. Now, fast forward to today, the population of the entire island of Ireland is about 7 million. Yeah, you heard that right. It's actually gone down. And that sets up our big mystery, right? In a world where we're always talking about population exploding, how on earth can a country have fewer people now than it did 2 centuries ago? Well, to answer that, we've got to understand the basic code of how populations work. So, let's break it down to the fundamentals. It really only boils down to a few key things that decide whether a population grows, shrinks, or just stays the same. First up, you've got the engine of growth, the birth rate. It's a pretty simple idea. For every 1,000 people in a place, how many babies are born in a year? And on the other side of the coin, you have the death rate. It's the same logic. For every 1,000 people, how many pass away? The push and pull between these two is what drives most natural population change. And then you got the wild card, migration. People moving all over the place. A simple way to remember it, immigration is people coming in, and emigration is people exiting. This one factor can completely change the game for a country's population. Okay, and here's a quick but super useful distinction, because people mix these up all the time. Distribution is about how people are spread out. Are they all packed into cities? Are they living along the coast? Density, on the other hand, is just the raw number. How many people are crammed into a certain space? Two different ways of looking at where people are. All right, now that we have those basics down, we can bring out the big tool for understanding all of this, the demographic transition model. The best way to think of it is like a roadmap for a country's population, showing how it changes as the country develops. And this roadmap has 5 main stages. It starts at high fluctuating, then kicks into early expanding, where the population just takes off. After that, things slow down in late expanding, then they level off in low fluctuating, and finally, some countries hit a stage of decline. So here's how it all plays out. In stage 1, life is tough. You've got high birth rates, but also really high death rates from things like famine and disease, so there's not much growth. But in stage 2, life gets a little better. Say, cleaner water, better sanitation, and the death rate plummets. Birth rates are still high, though, and boom, you get a population explosion. Then, in stage 3, as societies get more developed and women get more access to education and jobs, the birth rate starts to drop. Growth cools off. Stage 4 is where you find most developed countries today. Low birth rates, low death rates. Pretty stable. And stage 5? That's new territory, where birth rates are so low that the population actually starts to shrink and get older. Okay, so let's see this model out in the real world. We'll start with Nigeria, which is just a textbook example of a country right in the middle of a massive population boom. Yup, Nigeria fits that stage 2 profile perfectly. And remember, that's the early expanding phase, the one where the population is just skyrocketing. So why is this happening? Well, it's that classic stage 2 combo. You've still got high birth rates, often tied to cultural values, and fewer educational opportunities for women. But at the same time, basic healthcare, like vaccines, has gotten way better, which means the death rate, especially for kids, has dropped like a rock. So what you get is something called a youth bulge, a huge generation of young people. Now, that can be an incredible engine for economic growth, for sure, but it also puts an enormous amount of pressure on the country. You've got to build schools, find doctors for hospitals, and the big one, you have to create millions and millions of jobs. Okay, so now that we've got the demographic transition model in our back pocket, let's circle all the way back to our original puzzle. Let's solve the mystery of Ireland. This timeline just tells a wild story, one that's totally unique. Ireland had its stage 2 boom really early, actually doubling its population. But then, catastrophe. The Great Famine hit, and it didn't just slow things down, it caused a total collapse. That was followed by a whole century of decline as people just left the country. It wasn't until the 1990s, with that Celtic Tiger economic boom, that the trend finally turned around. And today, Ireland is a stable stage 4 country. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your head around the scale of the famine. A single potato disease led to mass starvation, and in just 5 years, more than 1 million people died. And at the exact same time, another million people flood the country, just desperate to escape. It was this devastating 1-2 punch that just completely shattered the population. And that's the answer. The key to the puzzle isn't in the normal transition model. Ireland's demographic story was completely derailed by this incredible historical trauma. That combination of mass death, followed by a century of mass emigration, is the reason its population is still lower today than it was almost 200 years ago.
So, we've looked at a country in stage 2 and another that took a very strange road to stage 4. But what about the future? What happens when more and more countries start hitting that final stage of the model? Stage 5 brings a whole new set of problems to the table. See, when your population starts to shrink, it also gets older on average, and that creates a huge economic squeeze. You have fewer young people working and paying taxes, but a growing number of older folks who need pensions and healthcare. Places like Japan and Germany are already right in the middle of figuring this out. And really, it all boils down to one magic number, 2.1. That's called the replacement rate. It's the average number of kids each woman needs to have just to keep the population from shrinking. And for a while now, many of the world's most developed countries have been falling below that number. And that leaves us with a really big final question. For pretty much all of human history, our biggest challenge has been managing growth. But for the first time, we're facing the complete opposite problem. As more countries tip into stage 5, you have to wonder, who is going to support a world that is, for the first time, growing old? That's the next great population puzzle.